Hello and welcome to the Metropolitan Club. I'm Mindy Wright, a member of CMC's Board of Trustees and Director of the nonprofit Higher Ed Alliance. It's really good to see everyone here today. Today's CMC Forum, Ohio's Energy Collaborations, is sponsored by The Ohio State University, represented here by many friends and associates. Won't you please help me thank them? Since new technology unleashed Appalachia's shale gas, that area has become one of the most productive areas in the nation. Meanwhile, solar and wind projects are popping up across the state, and the State House is discussing a proposed bailout of Ohio's existing nuclear plants. All of these matters involve regulation, collaboration, and communication. To explore where Ohio's energy story is going, let's welcome our experts. Vice President of Public Affairs at Kinder Morgan, Alan Fore, Director of Energy, Utility, and Local Government Policy at the Ohio Farm Bureau, Dale Arnold, Partner and Chief Strategy Officer at Hecate Energy, LLC, David Wilhelm, and our host, journalist at Columbus Business First, Tristan Navera. Tristan, the podium's yours.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you everybody for coming out today. I see a lot of folks that I have talked to before, so please be nice to me. This is my first time doing this. Great. So yeah, as Mindy said, this is a very interesting time in the energy business in Ohio. Just about every different aspect of our business here, there's something really exciting happening. So it's good that we have people representing the different cross sections of the business. So let's just get started and talk about maybe what you kind of see from your perspective as some of the biggest things that are happening on your fronts. So you can start, Dale.
Start with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm with the Ohio Farm Bureau, and I travel all over the state talking with folks regarding energy development. What I want you to think about is this. When you're talking about an at-now time frame where things really need to be done, think of it as a 30-year time block. Children, grandchildren, grandparents are taking a look at a number of particular things to ensure that energy development and their needs for fuel and electricity, rural, urban, suburban basically, are addressed in that time frame, 30-year time block. I want you to think about this: energy generation, transmission, local distribution. That entire system for electricity as well as fuel is changing very rapidly. We're going from very large centralized systems to more decentralized systems. You're seeing energy development projects in areas where you've seen a lot over the last century where the collective consciousness is very good. And you're also seeing a number of communities, especially the further you go west in Ohio. This is the first time in a generation or more where they've had to take a look at energy development. Collaboration is key. Discussions between local government officials, energy service providers, groups such as Farm Bureau, the Chamber, and others, local community stakeholders are going on with regard to that. And the need for those things, the need for those discussions, the need for those things around the table are becoming increasingly important.
Great. I'm next?
Yes.
All right. Well, I am focused like a laser beam on the development of a 300 megawatt solar assignment from American Electric Power in Highland County, Ohio. In deep southern Ohio, where poverty rates are high, where opioid abuse is well known, and where the addition of solar energy into Ohio's energy mix represents one of the great hopes for that part of Appalachia. I come from the Appalachian region, and you rightfully noted the important success and employment and wealth creation associated with natural gas discoveries in the eastern part of our state. God bless them that they have that. But once you get outside the hills and the natural gas goes away and you're in deep southern Ohio or southwestern Ohio, what is the principal natural resource that can be turned into energy? It's the sun. It's as sunny in southern and southwestern Ohio as anywhere in this part of the country. And the price for utility scale solar generation has dropped to levels that are roughly competitive with natural gas. So I guess the point I want to make with respect to energy collaboration is this. All too often, natural gas and solar and other forms of energy are posed as if they are in opposition to one another. We need each other. We are an intermittent source of electricity. Natural gas is a baseload form of electricity. Their pricing is variable. It changes month to month, quarter to quarter. Ours is stable and readily knowable for the duration of our projects. We are a price hedge. We represent diversification. We need each other. We're not going to have an energy system that is totally powered by solar anytime soon in the state of Ohio. But in collaboration, in conjunction with sources of energy like natural gas principally, all of Ohio, the eastern part of the state and the southern part of the state, will play an important role and enjoy the wealth creation and job creation associated with an all of the above energy strategy in the state of Ohio.
Okay. Kinder Morgan, for those who aren't aware, we're in the transportation and storage business. And what that means is that we transport all types of energy, could be natural gas, refined products, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, CO2, and we store them as well in tank farms for liquids and bulk storage facility for bulk products. We just completed a major project in Ohio, about $550 million, called Utopia, which was designed to transport natural gas liquids. And we've invested billions of dollars in the state over many years for upgrading and enhancing our infrastructure in the state, which includes both terminals and pipelines. David mentioned, and you can't overstate the significance of the shale plays in the state of Ohio, not just to the state, but to the nation. We do a lot of work around the country, and particularly in the Permian and the Bakken. And they're talking about Ohio and Pennsylvania on a daily basis as really changing the plumbing of the energy supply for the country. When you think about it, traditionally, Ohio and go all the way into New England in the Northeast has been an importer of energy, typically from the Gulf area. We actually built a project about 15 years ago, I know, Dave, Dale, you're familiar with this, Rockies Express, that was designed, this is how dynamic the energy industry is. In that short period of time ago, we built a multi-billion-dollar project covering over 1,700 miles designed to transport Rockies gas, which at that time was the big deal, to a termination point right about at the Ohio border, right in the middle of the shale play. That's one of the most prolific shale plays for production of natural gas in the world. But at that time, it wasn't technologically, economically feasible to extract in large capacities. So the infrastructure wasn't wasted because we now reversed, we don't own the line anymore, but the company that does reversed it and now is shipping it back to Chicago. And what you're seeing is shipping out of Ohio to west and to the south. So it is an enormous national, international shale play. But I'll agree with what David mentioned. And we're in the business of operating and building significant infrastructure. And Dale mentioned this too. The changing energy dynamics of what is this supply used for? As we're switching from nuclear and from coal for power generation, natural gas traditionally been used, known as home or business heating, right? Now it's power generation and taking up a significant amount of the power generation load for natural gas supply, which has increased the need for natural gas. Natural gas liquids that I mentioned, say, what is that? Well, that's ethane, propane, or some type of mix. And what is that primarily used for? Well, you know, propane for your gas grill, but a bigger use for that, or derivatives of those, is plastic production. And that's a big, huge deal. And we're talking about the crackers that are going to be developed in the region to address particularly that. But also renewables, critically important in the energy discussion and debate. And I know we're going to talk about this some more today, but David is exactly right. There is a need for all of these. And natural gas, you know, we believe as a company too that renewables are in the future, and they are year by year picking up more of that load. But also natural gas for the very foreseeable future is going to play an important role in either primary or secondary, even when renewables get up to that level. So I think there's a lot of common ground here that working together we can address. And Ohio is really uniquely situated because I think you have a very robust effort to develop renewables in the state. You're helping with that. But also both under the previous administration and this administration, and the Farm Bureau and other NGOs and their input really have developed a national leadership in the responsible extraction and transportation of natural resources. And that's really important. I'll end with this. Because companies that are looking to invest, whether it's David's company or our company or others, are looking at this overall climate. And it's from a regulatory climate, from a political climate, from an overall a comprehensive look, because where we invest our dollars, which are significant, billions and billions of dollars every year, we want to have an environment that is understanding of the needs of this infrastructure, but also developing them in a responsible way. That, at the end of the day, I think, is in the best interest of the citizens of a particular state and really the best interest of the country.
Great. So maybe we can talk about kind of the state of regulations in Ohio and kind of how things relate to other states. I mean, obviously, Kinder Morgan has just completed a pipeline project. As David was talking about, AEP has proposed what would be the largest solar farm in the state's history in Highland County, kind of around an area where a number of coal plants have closed. What is your experience with the regulations and the climate here, and maybe does it compare to other states?
Let me start. It's an important question because, as I mentioned previously, we look at the regulatory environment as one of the legs on a stool, if you will, of deciding whether or not to move forward on a project. If you're investing hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in a project, regulatory certainty is critically important. And now more than ever, when you are developing infrastructure, certainly in our business, in the midstream business, this is pipelines and terminals particularly, there are a lot of challenges related to that. And to be frank, a lot of opposition to expanding infrastructure for a variety of reasons. And so you have to make a specific case for why are you expanding infrastructure. On our Utopia project, for example, in Ohio, it was to transport plastics. Excuse me, not transport plastic, it was transport for the production of plastics. And that was and what's the alternative to that? A lot of this product is flared away. You know what I'm talking about? So you'll have stacks where you're extracting, your primary purpose is to extract natural gas. If you don't have a home for the byproduct of that, you'll burn it off. Not good for the environment, a waste of an important resource. So you got to make a case for it. And then to the regulations, because all of these projects, true for the solar industry as well, are based upon federal and state regulation, in some cases local regulations. And I will compliment the administration, the prior administration, and this administration, and this goes back many, many years and back to even the Strickland administration, an understanding of the responsible balance of a rigorous environmental review. And this is in collaboration, and Dale and I have worked together for years on a number of items, including things like an agricultural impact mitigation agreement. I'll let you talk about that. But but have developed a collaborative effort between NGOs, developers, and government that has set a standard that is used across the country, in that particular example I gave. And I think Ohio, especially considering how quick this happened. If you look at Texas or Alaska or some of these other states, there was a long time to develop this. Ohio had to do it quickly. And a lot of credit goes to the state. And of course, there were bumps along the way. But I think they've worked a lot of those out. The previous EPA administrator, Craig Butler, and many, many others were very influential in this. But I think as an industry leader in what we do, we look at Ohio as a very, very good example of getting it right. Probably not as everything that we would want, and probably not as everything that those who might oppose the industry might want. So it probably means it's about right. So I commend them. And when you're looking at again, investing the dollars, the billions of dollars, and if you've got a project in Ohio and a project in, say, Texas or North Dakota, you're going to look at the compatibility of those regulations, not wanting a rubber stamp. A rigorous review is good for everyone involved, but the responsible understanding of balanced extraction and transportation regulations balanced with the importance that economic development and energy supply play in that.
Well, it is really, really hard to build a utility-scale solar project in the state of Ohio. It is tough sledding from a regulatory standpoint. And as a result, even though Ohio has plenty of sun, especially in the southern and southwestern part of the state, even though American Electric Power stepped up and said, we will purchase 900 megawatts worth of renewable energy, even though 4,000 jobs would be created or retained in one of the poorest parts of the state, it is really, really hard to have a project approved and in construction in this state. And so as a result, there is no utility-scale solar project in existence above 25 megawatts in the state of Ohio. Now, you will hear about this project is planned, that project is planned, this project is planned. We're going to have this glory day in Ohio for solar. Let's see which projects emerge. Do the projects have an offtake agreement with a bankable buyer of electricity? We do. They're called American Electric Power. But it's tough because there is the PUCO evaluates projects according to a very narrow definition of what constitutes the need for a project. That narrow definition preserves the status quo because one of the things that is not considered is the clean energy mix. One of the things that is not considered is the economic development benefit in places like southern Ohio, Appalachian Ohio. Those things are not considered. And so we're in the process. I have poured everything I can. I come from the Appalachian region. I respect everybody who mined coal. I come from a county that was one of the biggest coal mining areas that this country has ever seen, and I respect every single person that gave of themselves. But now consumer preferences have changed, technology has changed, the people that I grew up with have been left out, and I've turned to solar because I look and I say, okay, we've got the land, we've got the sun, we've got the transmission left over from coal. The transition for southern Appalachia in Ohio from the coal past is solar. And that's how, and it's in absolute collaboration with the emergence of the natural gas industry. That is the future for the state of Ohio. But I would be lying to you if I was, oh, everything is kumbaya, we're going to get this project across the finish line. People that are a lot smarter than me when it comes to regulatory politics, the state of Ohio says, at best, this is 50-50. We got to figure out, folks, we got to figure out a way to bring utility scale solar into the mix. In industry, it's not a question. Of course we would collaborate. Of course it goes together. But in Ohio, for reasons that I don't quite understand, we are so often pitted against each other. Like if I'm solar, I can't also be sympathetic to coal? I can be. You go to my house, there's a statue of a coal miner right in my living room. If I'm solar, I can't be sympathetic to the emergence of the natural gas industry? Absolutely I can. I cheer for it. And I want a state that is true to the vision of an all-above energy strategy because we have the resources and the geography to make that vision a reality.
Cool. Now then,
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Wilhelm, Mr. Fore on a number of projects. Well, wait a minute, your project, one project. Done a lot of things with transmission, pipelines, oil and gas, coal, strip mines, wind, solar. Where is this all being developed? Open rural areas, farm ground. I've been working with farmers all over the state on all types of energy generation, transmission, distribution projects to have them accommodated on open farm ground. What's nice about this state, and in this state we have one uniform process that takes a look at environmental, aesthetic, socioeconomic, economic, and other particular things when you're taking a look at power siting generation, transmission lines and pipelines. It's called the Ohio Power Siting Board. My job is helping a lot of folks get involved in that process. To make a long story short, those rules have been in place since 1973. They apply and have been adapted to every type of energy technology here. They take a look at a number of particular standards. It's a judicial process where hearsay does not apply. You approve and you work with folks with regard to that. There was also avenues in there and responsibilities for local government and community stakeholders to be involved in those processes where collaboration is done, discussion is done, resolution to problems, issues, concerns basically are done, stipulations are created and addressed, and projects move forward. You've seen that work with your project down there in Highland County.
Right.
What I need to say to you, my friend, is you need to know more about the process because you'll be working with our folks in different things.
Right.
And working closely with them and creating that dialogue. I look forward to working with you in the future as you gain more experience using it.
Yeah. Well, in Highland, I like that. A call for collaboration. In Highland, we worked closely with you, and I mean, it's an interesting process. Here you have a rural county, in comes, this solar opportunity. We're buying some land from farmers locally who are willingly sell, but these guys come in, and as part of the, I don't know, is it formal or informal part of the process? But
it's part of the process. We've filed motions to intervene to be party of record in 72 power siting cases with pipelines, wind, solar, biomass, fuel cell, transmission on behalf of our members in many counties in the state.
So we sat down, and the Farm Bureau makes sure that the developer, us, and we work with Tony Logan, who used to head up the USDA Rural Development in the state of Ohio, that we are proceeding in a manner that enhances the interests of the farmers of Highland County, that we are proceeding in a manner that is environmentally appropriate, that maximizes economic development. You can explain your goals better than I, but the point is that there is that process and that there is that collaboration, and it is built into the evolution of the project. That in order to establish the rate of taxation on the solar project, the county commissioners must act. It's not like, you know, we come in and just say, oh, here we are, we're the best thing since sliced bread. The pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes, is established in conjunction with the county commissioners of the relevant county, in this case Highland County. So collaboration is built into the process. Collaboration is what led to the agreement between many environmental groups and other players in the state of Ohio and American Electric Power in the first place. And Dan Sawmiller is here, and Heather Taylor Measley is here, who had such an important role to play in that collaborative process. Anyway, we didn't get to where we are today by accident. It happened because of the involvement and the expression of interest on a lot of the principal players in the state of Ohio.
I have one additional comment. And David and I gave a little different view of the regulatory framework in Ohio for our businesses, but not inconsistent. And I'll tell you why. And I'll give you an example. We have been looking for ways to somehow get into the renewable space, and a recent example of that is Staten Island, New York. I was just talking to David about this. We had the largest undeveloped tract of land in the city of New York. It was on our tank farm that was there, 35 of the huge white tanks, you've seen these, that stores gasoline and diesel, that provides that supply to New York. But we had an additional, I think, 20+ acres that had not been developed. That is now, today, the largest solar array in the city of New York, right next to our hydrocarbon terminal with gasoline and diesel. So that prompted me to take a look at, well, how can we do this in other places across the country? And we're looking at the Chicago area and California. But I asked specifically about Ohio. I said, what about Ohio? Because what we do have is, at our company, is a lot of land. We've got a lot of facilities that have extra space where we could do perhaps a Staten Island type situation. And I'm not an expert at this, you're more expert than me, but the company that we talked to that's in the solar business tiered the states in which states are, maybe hospitable is not the right word, but the overall climate is a good one for development of solar projects. Mm-hmm. Ohio was not in the top tier. Mm-mm. It was in the bottom tier of states in the country. And that's unfortunate because we're not, this is collaboration. Right. This makes sense. Right. We wouldn't be opposed to Ohio being in the first. That would be great because it would provide potentially more opportunities for us. So we're not threatened by the renewable business. I think this is forward-looking companies in the energy business, whatever. If you're in midstream, upstream, downstream, renewables, whatever it is. If you're thinking about the future, I think, Dale, you started with talking about 30 years is what you got to think about. 30 years is a minimum to be thinking about when you develop a project. We need to think about not where we are today, but where we need to be in 30 years. And to not think that renewables aren't going to be an essential part of that is simply not realistic.
Into not the natural gas.
And natural gas, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that's our business. But,
Right.
I think it is incorrect to assume that companies that our primary business is natural gas, the transportation of it, that there isn't going to be today and in the future a way to collaborate at this. So I think it's a good thing if Ohio makes some additional efforts to encourage any type of renewable development. I think that's good for the overall industry.
You're very well right, because I tell you this, and this is one thing we need to take a look at too. We've been talking here mostly about generation and a commodity, be it gas, be it propane, be it the flow of electrons. Placement of a power plant, a solar array, a wind turbine, a natural gas-fired turbine generation station can be placed a number of places efficiently, effectively, safely. Getting the transmission infrastructure and upgrading the local distribution infrastructure to do what we wanted to do are multi-billion-dollar hits, and we really haven't taken a look at that yet. Case in point, I want you to think about electric vehicles. In 10 to 15 years, we're going to be having a lot of people drive those in downtown Columbus. The question is, when they go to their office, they're going to want to do a recharge on their car there. Pay some money, plug it into the parking garage, and get recharged. If we did that today with around 1,500 cars, the entire transmission and distribution system in downtown Columbus would be shot. Think about the things that we want to do and have to do to be able to incorporate that. Think about the things you want to do basically in your home. You're starting to hear about it now with regard to AMI, or advanced metering infrastructure. The things you want to do with your computers, the things you want to do with VG chips in your appliances, talking to each other to share the load, the quality of life functions that you want to do with regard to HVAC, the number of things we're going to have to do beyond supplying the electrons in the fuel are absolutely positively huge. And if we can't crack the nut on bringing in a number of fuel sources and generation, we're going to not use that experience. We're going to have a heck of a time when it comes to taking a look at upgrading the transmission system and the local distribution system to do things. Right now, I want you to think about this. Those systems were the modern marvel of the 20th century. They were all designed when Warren G. Harding was president. They're a skeleton now. Based on what we want to do as a consumer, as a resident in Columbus, to do those things we want to do, that entire skeleton has to be fleshed out with moving and working organs. It has to become a living, breathing, one-platform system. And we also need to do that within the next 30 years. And the question is basically, how are we going to collaborate? How are we going to work? How are we going to do a number of things to address those? Another thing to think about.
Yeah. So this is actually very important. You may have seen the title, Energy Collaboration, and you're like, oh boy, that sounds exciting.
I'm excited.
We're excited up here, but we're actually, this is news in a way, because Ohio's politics is so divorced from this. I guess I want to make that point. You might be surprised that a natural gas guy and a solar guy are like, yeah, we need each other. Because we're kind of taught that, well, solar, you know, it's natural gas isn't clean enough, or solar's intermittent. No, the politics has got to catch up with it. You might be surprised that one of the biggest supporters of our project in southern Appalachian, Ohio, is the Boych companies, the biggest coal brokerage in the state of Ohio, maybe the entire Midwest. Why are they for it? For the same reason. They understand that energy needs to be diversified. They understand that we're in all of the above state. They understand that their future may include investment in renewables. They also have a legacy in the region, and they care about the region. I mean, it's like, that is so opposite. That's the reality. But it's opposite of what you may have thought walking in here.
Dave brings a very valid point. I work with farmers, local government officials, officials at state and federal levels. Let's start with farmers. When a farmer basically is approached with a lease, an easement, a potential partnership with an energy service provider, they call me and I go, well, great. How do you feel right now? I am scared to death. Why? It's not the legal aspects of the lease and different things. It's wanting to make sure that project, yes, accommodates my needs, my son's, my grandson's needs. I can still farm around it. My local community benefits from it. My state benefits from it. There's money and tax dollars going to my school. There's energy generation that basically can be used here efficiently, effectively, and affordably. What do other people feel about that? Because they're going to see my name in my farm in that particular project. When you talk to county commissioners, when you talk to state legislators, you get very similar answers and concerns. I think it's come to the point, too, is that some of us basically, we're just going to hold on straight to what we have here as long as possible. We do that, folks, basically. Energy development will all be in the cold and in the dark. We need to work on a number of particular things right now. Some of it's going to be ready, fire, aim. Some of it's going to be very well planned and detailed. Some of it's going to be a collaborative, and some people are going to become kicking and screaming coming into it with regard to that. But we have to do it.
Okay, so we are going to open things up for questions in a couple of minutes here. If you could, there's a microphone right back there. If you would like to ask a question, please go up and get lined up. Last thing, kind of maybe a parting thought. If you could briefly please, talk about an example of a good collaboration that you have seen in the business recently.
Good collaborations? I've seen a number of them, and I've seen others the exact opposite. It all has to do with an investment. If you're an energy service provider, you have two choices. You can either invest heavily in a lot of community outreach, working with local government officials, working with community stakeholders, sitting at kitchen tables, talking and answering questions and getting people involved, or you can wait and spend a lot of money in litigation on the other side. The choice is yours.
Well, this is a would-be collaboration. This is what pops into my head. I was just in Suriname. Suriname is in northern South America. Suriname is arguably the most ecologically, biologically diverse country on the face of the earth. They use a lot of heavy fuel oil in the generation of their electricity. That should change. And so I was just down there, and I heard this morning that it sounds like they're going to move forward, that they've got some hydropower. So the collaboration is that we're going to switch out heavy fuel oil in favor of solar, which is the perfect complement to hydropower. Because when it's not raining, it's sunny. No, when it's raining, it's not sunny. I feel like Dan Quayle right now. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. But anyway, talk about a cool project, talk about collaboration, switching out heavy fuel oil for solar in the most biodiverse country in the world in conjunction with a base that is hydropower. That is collaboration.
So a recent real-time example that actually still is working today is our collaboration with the Ohio State Farm Bureau and Dale in particular. When we were developing our Rockies Express pipeline, which is a 42-inch natural gas pipeline across the state of Ohio several years ago, one of the designs of a pipeline or infrastructure project when you're building a linear project is go in areas that's going to be least impactful. Where is that? It's in agricultural land. Why? Because agricultural use is a compatible use with post-construction pipeline. In other words, once the pipeline is buried, you can grow crops on top of it. But there was apprehension in the agriculture community because these were prime agricultural lands, not just ag lands, prime, the breadbasket of the country. So we worked with the State Farm Bureau and the DNR at that time, this was back in the Strickland administration, to develop an agricultural impact mitigation agreement that specifically outlined the issues of concern to farmers, like soil segregation. Peel off the topsoil, put the topsoil back on top. Sounds pretty basic, right? It wasn't done years ago, right, Dale? Right. So you'd mix the soils, which means it would permanently impact the crop yields. Soil compaction. How deep is the pipeline going to be? Going under drain tile. So getting to that level of detail, and this would ended up being maybe a 10-page document, which is still, and that most pipeline companies that are thinking, as Dale said, about getting things done at the beginning rather than litigation at the end, utilize this agreement. But it all started with a collaboration between the leading ag NGO in the state, the DNR, which had oversight over ag, and a developer. And that same collaboration has spilled over into Illinois and Indiana and other states using similar. So there is a way to think proactively about all of these issues and do things up front, because I will tell you, and I know we haven't touched on this a lot, but the challenge, regulations aside, the challenges of developing any infrastructure simply from a public perception, public input, scrutiny standpoint is unprecedented, and that's never going to change. So the idea that you can go out and build something just because you want to transport or store it and that's it, those days are over. You really got to make a case for each individual project that you're developing and show why on that particular project you've really gone above and beyond to address local concerns.
All right, so it's the tradition to take questions. So if you could step up and please state your name and ask your question. And please remember, questions end in a question mark. No editorial comments, please.
My name is Craig Foster with Energility. I'd like to hear your opinion of the so-called clean energy bill that's in the State House right now that will subsidize nuclear power while stopping or quitting the energy efficiency and solar portfolio standards, and maybe how that fits in as a collaborative or not collaborative event.
Well, that lacks a certain level of collaborativeness. I don't know, it seems to me that if we're going to do that, I mean, moving into clean energy, being supportive of clean energy, including nuclear, is something. Heather told me I could even say the Ohio Environmental Council considers to be a topic worthy of conversation. But if you're going to do it, why would you leave out solar? Why would you leave out wind? Why would you leave out EVs? Why would you leave out carbon capture? Why? Let's clean it up, and let's do it in a way that allows us to leverage Ohio-based technologies and Ohio-based employment in the best possible manner we can. I hope that that this legislation that begins with nuclear is added to, and that we have genuinely all of the above commitment when it comes to sources of renewable energy.
Building what Dave basically has said, it's interesting. We believe in a diversified energy portfolio, and that includes coal, nuclear, wind, solar, biomass, fuel cell. We've been talking about collaboration here. We hope to see that, but I would say this, if I understand correctly, and I'm looking at our public policy staff, which I'm part of too, is that that bill or that draft will not be released till Friday. We'd like to see what it says in it before we basically make a judgment with regard to it.
Yes, my name is John McKnight with Lucky Dog T-shirts. Is fracking really necessary to meet our current energy demands, or is it simply politically and financially advantageous to some? Thank you.
The technology that is commonly known as fracking, without that technology, there would be no Marcellus shale play, to be blunt. I mean, it is the process. Remember I talked about the Rockies Express pipeline coming from the Colorado Rockies to the shale? The ability to extract is part of that process in a technologically, economically, and we believe an environmentally responsible way. Now, are there improvements that can be made to the process? There always are, and I think both the industry and regulators are taking a look at that, and to be sure that the most responsible methods for extraction are done. But make no mistake, that is what has revolutionized the hydrocarbon industry, not just in the Marcellus, but certainly in the Marcellus, and in the Permian and other areas, previously untapped areas that were not at all prolific is certainly not the case, but not at all even reasonable sources of energy now are. So I think the challenge moving forward is let's address some of the concerns that have come up regarding extraction, and let's find a process that is continuing to exercise best available technology for process improvements to make it done in the most responsible way. But, you know, we've always talked about domestic energy independence in this country, and many of us in here are old enough to remember when we had a serious energy crisis in the sense of lack of energy supply, and countries that hated the United States shutting off our energy supply, literally, and our country would stagger. That can't happen anymore, and part of that is because of the technology to extract additional energy, and we really are, at this point, domestically energy independent, and actually an exporter of energy to Mexico and other countries, which is good for the U.S. as well. So it is an important technology, and process improvements can always be made to make it better.
Yeah. I would say this. We've had over 80,000 oil and gas wells drilled in the state of Ohio in the 20th century. 98% of them were hydraulically fractured to make them productive. The first hydraulically fractured well basically in Ohio was near Hartville in Stark County in 1947. Oil and gas, what we get, plastics, pharmaceuticals, building supplies, materials, vital life compounds from a barrel of oil is still very much there. And unless you're ready to go totally frack free, that's not going to happen yet. Will we be transitioning to other things? That's part of this process too, but that's going to take decades. That's something for my grandchildren to take a look at and work on the different things. And if you think you can go frack free right now, I will take your car keys.
So we might have time for two quick questions.
Marion Harris with Ohioans for Gun Safety. Just a quick question. You talked about the challenge of regulations, and I'm wondering, you guys sound so wonderful. It's a kumbaya moment here listening to you all agree with one another so well and collaboratively. What can be done both on a federal level? I don't know what the federal regulations or how they impact what you're doing, but both on a federal and a state level, what's being done or what can you do to make it easier to do what you're trying to do?
I love you. Well, I'm going to say this too, is that I've had the opportunity to work with these gentlemen and their staffs over the last number of years, and I tell you, we don't have too many kumbaya moments. There are times we've had conflict, there are times we've had disagreements, there are times we've had to sit down and negotiate and had a number of concerns. What's nice about this is this, on the federal level as well as the state level. We talked about the Power Siting Board, and that gives us an avenue to address a number of concerns. On the federal level, it's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Similar process there. When farmers basically have a problem, issue, needed, concern, the first thing I take a look at is what does it say in the stipulations? What does it say in the rules and regulations? What does it say in the conflict resolution processes for each one of these projects? And what can we do there to start the process going? For many folks, it's understanding the process and where to start that's key, not necessarily getting things addressed and getting things done once you get there.
And we'll let this final question here too.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Kathy Fox. Thank you all for your passionate energy behind today's program. My question is, will Ohio have the generating capacity that it needs to provide the electricity needed in our state for all the citizens and businesses and industry? Or are we going to become dependent on energy extraction aside, but generating electricity? Are we going to become dependent on generation that is going to take place elsewhere?
It's interesting you say that because I want you to think about local electricity. Local electricity is 13 states. Ohio belongs to what's called PJM, which is the Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland Interconnection Network, which is the independent service operator, which is governed by FERC, NERC, and a number of other types of agencies. You talk about collaboration, you talk about working together, you talk about getting transmission and distribution and generation all in one thing. That's the process we need to take a look at. That's the process we need to emulate. That's the process we need to enhance. I tell folks, local electricity is 13 states. The question is, based on the decisions we're going to be making here, will Ohio be a leader in those 13 states, or will it be sitting on the bench? Depending on what decisions we make, will determine that over the next several years.
I'll add to that, too, that Ohio's in a lot better place than a lot of other states. Why? Because you have supply. And as all of these infrastructure developments, us and other companies are developing, when we develop a pipeline across the state of Ohio or somewhere in the state of Ohio, you are enhancing infrastructure. It means more supply to more places in the state. Most of these systems are common carrier systems where you can access into those systems in areas that never before had access to natural gas. And bottom line is you got the shale play. Think about Maine, think about Massachusetts that have no energy supply of their own and are always going to be importing energy from somewhere else. So the basis is there, which puts Ohio in a lot better place than other states because of the supply.
All right, so.
Just really quickly, at the very end of your question, the question was, are we going to be an importer or exporter of energy? I have never seen a state or a country that wants to be a net importer of electricity. It is a danger to give up your sovereign ability to control your own energy future to those of others. And I think when it comes to the approval of our solar project before the PUCO, that point is very well taken, because just as shale gas is a tremendous asset of the eastern Ohio region, solar is of southern Ohio and southwestern Ohio.
Ma'am, we probably haven't talked about on-site generation, but that can be the subject for another topic. Please have us back. We'll talk about that one.
All right. Thank you all for your questions. With that, we'll turn the floor over here.
I certainly feel a lot smarter today. I hope you all do too. Let's thank our sponsors, The Ohio State University, and our speakers, Alan Fore, Dale Arnold, David Wilhelm, and Tristan Navera. And thanks to you all for being here.